This is the second Rebel Wilson movie I've seen in like the same span of 3 months, so this should be fun. Hey, it's Zadie and you're watching Flytte Kartina. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I review movies for fun. So this movie review is about The Hustle, which stars Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson. You've got Anne Hathaway, who is a great actress. She's been consistently doing well over her whole career of her whole life. And then Rebel Wilson, who is a rising star in the world, in the film world especially, because of her Pitch Perfect role. The Hustle is about two women who are both con artists and they do something with their career together. Honestly, judging by the trailers, it's really hard to tell where this movie is going direction-wise, so I'll try not to spoil anything about the plot in my actual review of the movie on the second half of the video. The first half of the video is going to be dedicated to mainly the rating of the movie that the MPA gave it, and then I'll go into why it was rated that way, and then I will rate this rating on my own rating system. If you're not confused yet, then you will be in a few minutes, but let's get going. So the movie The Hustle is rated PG-13 for some crude sexual content and language. Let's talk about crude sexual content for the first part, and let's be honest, that's pretty much Rebel Wilson's area of expertise in her humor style. If you have seen Pitch Perfect or Isn't It Romantic, she does err on the side of those kinds of jokes. There's one scene that I think of where she is making all of these jokes and then she's like, "Hello, do you want to make relations with me?" And the guy was like, "What?" And then, cut scene and enter into another scene. So Rebel Wilson tends to make a lot of these jokes, and Anne Hathaway makes a couple of them as well. There's a couple of scenes which are kind of interesting, like the one that I just described, and then there's one where she's dressed up as this character, and the character is in Renaissance / medieval times, and so she has, I don't know what it's called, but it's things that people in power, men in power, would put on their wives to prevent them from having children with other men, so that they would be sure that the children that they bore were theirs, like the husbands. And for a brief 1-minute segment of the movie, that is all that is shown of Rebel Wilson and her, with her attire. Other than that, there's a couple of kissing scenes that happen, in between characters, and it's really, not that bad, but the humor is what I'm really talking about in terms of, frequency and how much of it was used. The second part of it is language, and I really didn't notice a whole ton of it. Obviously there's the majority of the outbursts and then the occasional insult that happens, but overall I didn't really notice a lot of language that had happened. So I'm going to pull up the frequency chart and rate this movie on a frequency of 1 to 10 on how frequent these elements that I just described to you were and how it's up to you to determine how this rating affects you. So for the PG-13 rating of The Hustle that has crude sexual content and language in it, I'm going to rate this movie on the frequency chart. I'm going to rate it about a 7. Just a little bit above average just because of all the jokes that are used and how consistently they're used. If that doesn't make sense to you, let me pull out my magical scale of movies where I rate a movie on a scale of Lego Movie 2 to Deadpool on how appropriate this movie is for younger audiences. So I'm going to rate The Hustle on this chart as I think it's a 6, which is The Help. So to explain things, the frequency of the elements in the PG-13 rating is about the same as the frequency as the rating in The Help. What do I mean by that? When you see the movie The Help, it's mostly about racism against women in the 1950s/60s, I believe. So the things that might mentally harm younger audiences in that movie are categorized as thematic elements. And so the thematic elements in The Help kind of equate on a consistent level with The Hustle and how the crude sexual humor happens. That's kind of how I rate things on this, at least on this chart. Anyways, we are done with the first half of this video, so let's get on to the second half where I don't spoil anything pertaining to the plot of this movie, but I will talk about what I liked and what I did not like about this movie. I saw the trailers for this and I was actually kind of excited for this. I knew it was going to be like an average comedy sort of situation, but I thought it might, it had potential to go above and beyond the average comedy, zone. But it didn't go very far off of that. Obviously it's Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson, two very, very proficient actresses in their realm, and they know what they're doing, and if they wouldn't have gone on board with this movie if it you know, if they didn't think it had potential at least. I enjoy Anne Hathaway as an actress. I also enjoy Rebel Wilson, but only in certain roles, and that's just kind of how things go. Anne Hathaway is a very diverse actress, while Rebel Wilson is tending to stick to her comfort zones right now because she's just getting into the film world, and not getting into it, but getting up in the film world. This movie made me laugh a little bit more than The Long Shot did, and just because of the jokes that they were using and just the interesting ways that they were using, like physical comedy and stuff like that. There's a training sequence that you see in the trailers that is not ever, the skills that she learns there are not ever used in the rest of the movie. It's not used at all. In a movie like Back to the Future, the elements that are in Act 3 have been introduced in Act 1 and reintroduced and reintegrated into the story in Act 2. And then in Act 3 is when they all come together and all of those elements are now being used in Act 3. The training sequence that they use in the trailers is the skills in there are never used again. There's a couple of things that were also used in there, but that was kind of just my one thing that I was just kind of a little bit iffy on. I think it was a very interesting concept having two con artists who are both women just explain the con to audiences, and whether it be fictional or in reality, how con artists do their work. Again, it was an interesting concept. It didn't disappoint me, but it didn't like raise my expectations for comedy in the future. Comedies in general do very successfully because people generally want to laugh and have fun and take a break from the dramatic and from the rest of the world that they live in, or the dystopian trends that are happening or had happened with all of the dystopian trends. But that's just me talking. But for you guys, the question of the week is, what is your favorite role that either Anne Hathaway or Rebel Wilson have been in since they have started their film career? It could be anything. Let me know in the comments down below. While you're there, before you scroll all the way to the bottom, hit the subscribe button. It's a bright red button, but before that you gotta click the like button for this video, then hit the subscribe button, and then go to the notification bell. The reason why you do all three of those, one, if you like this video, then I will know that you like it and I'll keep creating and generating more content for you. The subscribe button is so that I get to know a little bit more about my subscribers and get to know you a little bit more, maybe do some live streams with you guys if I get enough of a base going. And then the bell notification icon is there so that you're one of the first people to know when I post my next video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great random Thursday. I will see you on the other side of the screen. Bye!